Hello Flosstube, I'm Deb. I'm the traveling stocking stitcher, and I am wearing this Venetian mask because I have a very important Chatelaine milestone in my Venice Mandala Chatelaine. So I'm going to show you that today, and masks seem appropriate because I'm also going to show you a finish that I have that you guys helped me with. I'm calling it Crowdsourced Raccoons because you guys gave me a lot of ideas of what to do, and raccoons wear masks. So I'm going to take this off because it is literally resting on my eyelids and I can't see a thing. So I'll be back in a sec. Oh, that's so much better because it was sitting right on my eyelids. Anytime I talked, it slid down on my eyelids and I couldn't do anything. So I'm very excited today to show you the progress that I've made on my Venice Mandala Chatelaine. I've completed all of the cross stitches on it, and probably most of the back stitching, I believe, and even probably a good half of the specialty stitches. I started out not doing specialty stitches, and about halfway through I thought, well, why don't I go ahead and do them now, and while I'm doing the regular stitches. So I've got a good start on those as well. So really it's down to specialty stitches more towards the middle is where I started, and then to add the beads, and I will be complete. I've really powered on this thing in the last month. I've really stitched on nothing else since I came back from the Queen City Stitch Retreat. So I will show you what I've done. It's sitting here behind me. I was going to try to get a picture of it in the share, but it didn't quite. The camera wasn't able to catch it. I'll try to see if I can get the bulk of it to show here even. So here it all is. I'm going to have to back up, I think, here to see the whole thing in total. We'll go this way a bit. There it is. I will get in close here, and any place you see big spaces, particularly in the middle here, those are all going to be beads. And I've done all the back stitching around there. That's the what they call a Venetian mirror. That's where the bulk of the back stitching was. There really has not been a tremendous amount of back stitching I've noticed on most of the chatelaines I've done, so that's a real plus. But you can see the holes when you work out on the perimeter around there, the kind of the purple border around there. In the green spots, those are going to be trees that will be in there. And I'll back up a little further here, and got the windows on all four sides, and then there are the Rialto Bridge on all four sides, flanked by lampposts. And then I'll give you a close-up look of all the windows here. Each set of windows, the middle one is the same, but on the outside you've got a bridge and you've got a dome. And then if I spin it this direction, we've got this, it's supposed to be a gondola. More on that in a little bit, because I wasn't sure exactly what it was. But there's the lighthouse again, is the same as on the other one. And then this is the lion is the symbol of St. Mark, who is the patron saint of Venice, and he is on a column that's out near the lagoon. And spin it a little bit more, and this has got some of the palazzos along the Grand Canal is over on the left-hand side, and the right-hand side is one of the towers in Venice, probably the bell tower, I'm thinking, in Piazza San Marco. And then the last side, we've got, again, a building, and here's one of the, I'll have to look it up, but maybe in my next video. I've looked them up before, but I don't think I prepared for it. But here's a guy wearing one of those masks. Fun fact, this is probably the only fun fact I'll have this episode, is the masks that they wear are called Columbina or Columbines, and they wore them for Venice Carnival. And the reasoning behind wearing one was there was a lot of class hierarchy. If you want to get away from it all and not have anybody know what they were doing, they would just slip on a mask, and, you know, just like in all the movies, nobody can tell who you are if you put a mask on your face. Over your eyes, especially. Just over your eyes. Nobody will be able to know who you are. It's a nice theory. But here's a close-up shot of the Rialto Bridge and the gondolier, and they do have like purple velvet chairs, and that are usually covered with gold braiding. And you see a lot of Algerian eyelets across the roof there and in the center of the bridge. So those are some specialty stitches. Here's a close look at the lamp posts. And then over in each of the corners, you have some decorative corners, specialty stitches, more of those Venetian mirrors, the gray there. And then these are some of those masks. Let me see, turn it this way, and you've got a blue one and a silverish one. And over on this side here is more of a purplish one with a silver and gold mask on that side. So I ordered this in November of 2021 and received it in July of 2022. And I started it in October of 2023, and I worked on it pretty diligently, and then put it away for quite a while, and was working on other stuff, and just I really enjoyed doing it. I'm doing it in white even weave. This is I'll put the information below. I think it's 32 count. I'm pretty sure. Jobelan, and I got it off 1-2-3 stitch, and it's lovely to stitch on. It's very easy to stitch with, and ordered the materials from European Cross Stitch Company, and there is a misconception out there that that's a European company. It's a U.S. company, but the designer of Chatelaines, Martina Rosenberg, she was German, and but the European Cross Stitch Company sells the flosses and the beads, the specialty flosses, but they don't necessarily sell the charts. To get the PDF charts, you want to go to Chatelaine.de, which is a German company, and that is run by Martina's daughter. Sadly, Martina's no longer with us, but Ella, Martina's daughter, runs the company where you can get the PDF forms. You can also buy paper copies on 1-2-3 Stitch and other places. I think European Cross Stitch Company also sells the paper copies, but they're not, to my thinking, easier to read. Some people have a preference for doing those things. I was able to get things into Pattern Keeper. Some of the Chatelaine designs that she had designed were broken up into classes, so the idea of doing something every month, and this one was like that. And so I put each motif into Pattern Keeper, and all but one of them, because I think it was printed too close to the edge of the paper on one of them, one of the windows, but I did get them into Pattern Keeper. I don't remember how much of a struggle it was because it was a while ago, but because the motifs are always repeated, usually 4 times. In the case of the lamps, well, there were 2 together, so yeah, we'd have to stitch them 8 times, but they were charted out separately. But they would give it to you on the chart, and they would have some reference points, like you'd see part of the bridge that was next to the lamp posts. So to really track my progress and to see how many actual stitches there were, I kind of had to go through and highlight all the stuff that wasn't the things that I was going to stitch, that were just reference points, and then take my count there and put them in a spreadsheet and multiply it by 4 or 8 in the case of how many lamp posts there were. And then every time I went to stitch it, I would stitch it and check off my stitches, and then I'd have to clear just the ones that were the stitchable ones. So I used that feature where you can kind of hold and press on a certain symbol in Pattern Keeper, and then it says, do you want to clear everything on this page? And you can do that, and you can get things cleared off pretty quickly. But then you'd fill it up again, and the next time you had to stitch it, you had to clear them out again. So it is doable. My estimation was there was 63,300 stitches based on that kind of kludgy calculation kind of thing. So working with Pattern Keeper, on Chatelaines, you notice because you want to keep your stitches going all the same way, they recommend that you put a little reference point in here, and to mark in the middle. I've got an up arrow right in the middle here. Might be a little hard to see. Or sometimes people put it up in a corner or something. The problem is, though, is when you start working on this, you lose sight of that. And there was a time when I got it in the QSAP, and I couldn't see any other stitches around it hardly at all, except for a couple that had for placement points, for reference. And I ended up stitching it the wrong. I had flipped 45 degrees, so it was stitching halfway, you know, I'm stitching my stitches would go the wrong way. And I got a whole lamppost and probably about 200 stitches of the bridge in before I realized it, and I had to pull them all out and redo it. So one thing I got better at was when I had it in, I used an 11 by 11 Q-snap. I thought I was going to use some big, huge Q-snap or you know, a scroll frame or whatever, but I found my 11-11 was fine. It didn't scrunch things too much. I didn't have problems with things getting distorted or anything like that. But because you would lose sight of where you were, it was easy to not know where that reference point was for which way it was up. And so I ended up putting a bunch of needle minders. I had at least 4 needle minders across the top, so anytime I picked it up, I knew which was the top. Even if I moved one out of the way, at least 3 would still be up on the top. So that's a little tip for you. If you know, I learned that lesson once, I'm not going back. So the other approach that I took, I originally thought that I would want to do all of the individual motifs. So for instance, you know, do the center, of course, that's one piece, and then the square around the center is, you know, kind of also like a center. But then when I got into the individual pieces, that I would do all 8 of the lampposts, for instance, and then do all 4 of the Rialto bridges. And I kind of got antsy to see what it was, and I knew I was playing with fire there because, you know, you get done with all of the new elements, and now you got 3 others to redo over and over again of the same thing, and there was a risk that I was going to get bored with it. But I found that kind of got my interest in seeing how this is going to look, how far it's going to go, and you know where the perimeters are going to be. And once I got all of the elements done, and then started doing them the other areas, then I would do them together. So I would do all the 3 other sets of masks, for instance, and you kind of build up muscle memory. It's easier to, okay, I remember doing this, and it goes a little faster the next time you do it. So by the time you've done it to the 3rd or the 4th time, you're feeling pretty confident about it. Now, the other thing is, because you're always trying to get the stitches to go a certain way, when say you're doing the bridge, and the first time you do it, you're doing it across the top and it's going horizontally. Well, the next time you do the bridge, you're doing it on the side perhaps. And so on my phone, I turned off the auto rotate and left it on portrait mode. I stitch off of Pattern Keeper on my phone. And so that way I could, you know, turn it this way, turn it upside down, turn it 3/4 of the way around, depending on which side I was working on. So, but it's a very different experience stitching the same motif vertically as opposed to horizontally, and so it makes it feel new and fresh. So at least twice it felt new. So, and then I mentioned I was going to come back and talk about the window here that has the gondola, and I wasn't really sure. I looked on the Chatelaine gallery to see, because until I had the extra stitching on there, and even with the extra stitching, it's not 100% clear that that's what it is. It's just the prow, or the whatever the nautical term is for the end of the gondolier. You know, Martina was a genius in what she did with designs and stuff. But you know, everyone can't be winners, I guess. But yeah, that one. So I went looking online. I know that Issa Passions is on Instagram. She's French, but she does some beautiful, beautiful work. I'll link her Instagram down below. And she has done one, and I thought, I know I've seen this on hers, so I'm going to go over and look back on hers. And she had this full, you know, or at least half of a gondola that was, you know, wonderful. And she had charted it herself and found a picture that she liked and figured out how to stitch it. So I had already stitched this before, because I was like, now that it's done, it didn't still quite look right to me. So it wasn't until after I was going to pull it all out and rechart it and do it then. But what they do give you with this particular chatelaine, I don't know if it's common, but they do have a bonus chart, essentially, and it is 2 of the 3 windows, and they leave the inside blank, so you can do, you know, your own. They're the same size as these windows, and it has a different border around the outside, and then it's got 2 of these little guys here. These guys here, the little Venetian guys with the masks, they're kind of down in the corner. And there's not a mocked up version of it, and I don't think I've ever seen one stitched. It's just the chart, so I can't show it to you. But the middles are blank, and you can choose what you want to do. I might actually try to fit 3 across in there and be able to put some of the favorite ones, and I might try to chart that gondola in doing that one, and then I can make it as a travel poster, because I think I'll have probably enough leftover flosses to do a second, thing of not a whole second one of these, but I think it's like a 6x6 or an 8x8 square design that is a bonus one that uses a lot of these elements. So, and when I was chatting with Isabelle about what she had done to rechart this gondola, we talked about the fact that, nobody's going to notice. When you hold up this enormous, I think this is a 23-inch diameter piece, when you do that, nobody's going to go, hey, that gondola looks kind of funny, because there's so much detail. And I think the saving grace of these, if you're very intimidated by a chatelaine, nobody will know. It's like the Where's Waldo of stitching, because if you make a mistake, you'd be hard-pressed to go try to find that mistake yourself, and you were the one that made the mistake in the first place. So once this is finished and done, especially if you're standing like 3 feet away, no one's going to notice that something is not correct. You used the wrong floss, or it's off by a stitch, or whatever. So because they're so elaborate and so detailed, a mistake is just disappears. It's, you can't see the forest for the trees. So if that takes a little pressure off you, hope that helps. And I brought this along as a whip when I went down to the Queen City Stitch Retreat, I think I mentioned in October. And Fiber Arts Amy, who runs the retreat, she has been kind of following my progress on this and really, really likes this. And so she ended up buying this chart and the kit in the Black Friday sale this year. And so I saw her mention that on one of her floss tubes, and so I left a little message for her and told her, I guess that makes me the merchant of Venice. I sold it to her. So now it's time to do beading. What are my plans? Well, this is what I originally thought I was going to use to stitch the whole thing. This is a 17 by 17 Q-snap that I found at a rummage sale or something somewhere. But honestly, like I told you, 11 by 11 was much more manageable and easier to handle, and I could just, focus on one area at a time. It wasn't a problem. But I think this will be handy for beading, because when it comes to it, I'll be able to get, how much of this will fit in here, almost the whole center of it. And then there aren't a ton of beads like on the bridges, and I don't know about the mask, but I can put those in, doing it by hand. But this is going to get me a big chunk of the way there, I think, without too much trouble. One of the things that I do have, I've never really used a floor stand. I do have this, which is called a Giraffe. Let me see, who's it by? It is Rocky Giraffe. 3232 is the name, or the number for Rocky Giraffe. It is by Marie Products from Tucson, Arizona. And so let's see if I can hold this up here so you guys can see it. It's kind of a floor stand. It kind of looks like a giraffe. And so you can set it up so you can have this be more flexible. And so I sometimes use this if I'm stitching a Christmas stocking and I'm using an 11 by 17, because I like to not have to worry about it wrinkling, and it's kind of the shape of a length of a Christmas stocking. So I may use this and just kind of place my Q-snap and rest it on here. Because one of the things I don't like about the idea of stands, and again, I've never used a whole lot of them, but the idea that you got to screw around with unscrewing something and twist it around and, flip it around to get to the back to anchor down your stitches. This way I can just kind of leave it, kind of, you can see that. But kind of balance it against there. There's some teeth I can stick it between and kind of hold it in place. And then I just pull it out, get to the back, put it back in again. So that's plan one. The other stand that I found, again, somewhere at a rummage sale, is, oops, and I don't know that there's a brand name on here, but it kind of, I've not used this, but it looks like it sits on either side of you, You know, these are legs. Oh, got stuff all over me. So these are the legs. This has been in storage. It's full of dust. And it's got essentially what look like Q-snaps that you can hold in place. So you don't have to worry about basting or velcroing on stuff. And like I said, I apologize because I don't see a name on here at all. But these are the little clips here that you use to clip in place. If anybody knows what this one's called, please feel free to put it in comments and I can add it to my description if somebody comes up with what it is. So, you know, if I made products, I would put my brand on it so people could find them when they wanted to buy them again. So that seems to be probably wide enough. You know, I haven't even looked. Is it wide enough to hold this? It's wide enough to get me where I need to go. Yes, it does. So those are my ideas for how I'm going to approach beading on it. So I think with the beading, I don't know if I want to be doing that like all day long kind of thing. So I move around. Like if the sun is out in the morning, I'll be out on the front porch stitching, and then later in the day, when the sun moves over to the other side of the house, I'll be in the back porch stitching. And then in the evening, I'll come into the living room and stitch with my husband, watch TV. So I move around, and I don't want to, like, I want to have a home base for the beads. I don't want to move around with them. So I do have a tacky bob, and I have it in a CD case here, a jewel case. An old jewel case that I don't have the CD for anymore, but there it is, and so I will be using that to kind of hold the beads in place when I'm working on them and keep them from rolling all over the place. But I thought I would bead those for, you know, a certain part of the day, and then I needed something else to be stitching on, and I recently got a big delivery from Chatelaine from European Cross Stitch. A year ago I had ordered some stuff in the Black Friday sale, and they all showed up just in October, and so I'm real itchy to go start some of those things. And I started one, and I'm starting to pick out fabric for some others. I think I'll do a whole episode, probably the next time you see me will probably be my Chatelaine episode. I'm also going to be joining the 2025 Water Garden sale that Fiber Arts Amy and Maggie at Kitschy Whips are hosting, and so I do have my stuff for that, but again, I'll probably show that sometime in January. So what I'm planning on stitching when I'm not doing the beading on my Venice Mandala Chatelaine, I have started POMPEJI Mandala Chatelaine. Went to Pompeii when we visited Italy in 2018, and this one, the colors were so vibrant and beautiful and bold. And like I said, when I went to the retreat, you see all these beautiful different colors that people have used for fabrics. And I'm normally pretty boring and conservative and use white. I don't even like ivory that much. I'm usually a white person for a background. And but I saw some of these other things in Venice, or not Venice, but Pompeii, because there are some beautiful vibrant murals on the walls, and Italy just has this warm feel. One of my favorite pictures of us is not necessarily in Pompeii, but it is up in that northern area of town in our northern area of Italy, in Cinque Terre. Is this picture of my husband and I next to an orange wall, and it just, that's Italy for me. That's, I just love that. It feels warm. It feels, I can feel the sun on me when I look at that photo. So this is what I've got, and this is the adventurous step I took. If you're not doing it, the Facebook group, Chatelaine Support Group, I believe it's named. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. They are very supportive, and I posted this there and said, you know, talk me down from the ledge if I'm going just too crazy with this color. This is mostly a full coverage one, and that helped a little ways to consider the fact that most of the fabric isn't going to show. I'm not sure if it's going to show. It's pretty true to form. It's more orangey, I think, than is showing up on here. When I've tried to take pictures of it, it looks yellowish, and it looks more mottled. I didn't want something that was very mottled. Now, Martina Rosenberg had usually shied away from colors herself. She did offer some options for this particular one. She suggested like a basic, you know, a white or a cream, a basic neutral. but she also suggested black or dark green, teal or dark blue, and because there are a lot of those colors in there, but I just, like I said, this orangish kind of color I thought would be a nice touch. This is 28 count Midas from Picture This Plus that I got off at 123 Stitch, and it's, like I said, not modeled. I know that she had an issue with modeled fabrics too, and I've seen modeled fabrics just take over the design. But again, since this is not mostly going to show, it's mostly full coverage. But even when I started stitching, it was kind of like, oh, well, can I leave some places blank so that you can see a little bit of the fabric popping through? And so there's a little border around the edge. Not here, although there is a border here, but you do some specialty stitches, some Algerian eyelets, but I might do every other one or something so you can see a little bit of that. And there's a line around here that's a yellow, and it seems kind of pointless to stitch it when you got yellow or orange on here as well. And again, I've stitched the middle. That whole centerpiece is going to be beads. So you see that there, that's all beads. And then I've worked on this lower corner, lower left to you, I think it is. And then I'm working on this left-hand side that, when you look at it upright, is going to look, oops, like that. So it's going to be one of those frescoes you see inside the houses of Pompeii that they've excavated. And this fabric is almost like, even though it's a linen, it's a Belfast linen, but it's almost like an even weave. It's not real schlubby, and it's very even in terms of the loft and web and loft and weave or whatever. I can't ever remember those. But like I said, you don't have to worry about one little tiny thread next to a big fat fur thread, and so it's been very easy to stitch on. The size of this one is about 20.6 inches, and well, it's going to be square. It's even though it's a mandala, it's got a border around the edge, so it's going to be squared off. And it's the equivalent of DMC 972, if that gets you a feel for it. The size is, stitch count is 288 by 288. And this one, again, has a little bit different feel. I don't feel as much like I'm stitching sideways. Maybe it will when I start to get to a different one and it feels like I'm going the opposite direction. But I think that'll serve me well to have the needle minders pointing me to true north on it so I don't forget. And this is stitching up really fast. I really only started about a week ago, and I'm not stitching on anything else right now, and I'm retired, so I can stitch on all kinds of stuff. But I'm averaging about 1.5% a day, so it really shouldn't be too terribly long to get this all stitched up. And the other thing with Chatelaines, if you there is a Chatelaine Wednesday hashtag on Instagram for whatever hashtags mean anymore. They made that cryptic message, if you saw on Instagram, that hashtags will no longer be in use or something like that. You can't even find anything on Instagram or anything, or on Google. At least not around the time that they made that announcement. I couldn't find anything on Google that explained what that meant. And I've noticed, I went to the Jingle Ball this weekend, and on Instagram, people are posting things, but it doesn't tell you who they were posting it. It is telling you that it's part of the Jingle Bell hashtag. So it's like, you don't know whose item it was. And I don't think it's the Jingle Bell people posting it on behalf, oh, we saw somebody else and we're posting it on our thing. It's actually coming from somebody, but you don't know who they are. So I think we got some kinks to work out on that. Now I'm going to be going to a retreat. The folks from the Queen City Stitch Retreat are holding a mid-year one that's specifically for Chatelaine. So in July, I'm going to go back down there again and do their Chatelaine retreat. And so that's going to be a ton of fun. And they also hold Zooms, Chatelaine Wednesday. About once a month they will have a Zoom meeting that people can sit and stitch and chit-chat and get advice if you have questions. I mentioned the Facebook, the Chatelaine Support Facebook group. They're great. And they're also registration that's starting for the Queen City Stitch Retreat for October, and Nora Corbett is going to be their guest designer. She was their original first one a year ago, then Autumn Lane Stitchery, and now Nora Corbett's coming back again for Mirabilia Retreat. So registration for that starts January 1st, so keep an eye out for that. I am going to be volunteering to help them out with their media postings, and the social media director Maggie said I can call myself whatever I want. I was thinking of calling myself the poster child, posting. I don't know. It's a work in progress. So you may see me posting on behalf of Queen City Stitch Retreat as well. As I went to the Jingle Ball this weekend, and that was my first time, so it was a lot of fun. And if you don't know what it is, it's essentially a virtual retreat, and you can go into different stitching rooms, virtual stitching rooms, and kind of watch people. You could have your camera on or not, your microphone on or not, just kind of like sitting around stitching and talking. They had what was called speed dating, which was awfully fun, which, you think about it being kind of intimidating, but it's only 5 minutes and it goes really quick, and you can choose when you start the next one. You don't have to do them back to back to back, so it gives you a little opportunity to say, all right, take another breath, and then push the button when you're ready to be matched with somebody else. And they were only half-hour sessions, so depending how long your breathers were between each session, you could maybe have 3 or 4 sessions, and so it wasn't terribly, you weren't sitting there for an hour and a half and just relentlessly talking to people and flipping off to the next one. So, but I met some really cool people. I serendipitously ran into Leah Noel, who is of Rhubarb Patch Studio, and she doesn't live terribly far away from me. And we were talking, we were actually going to get together. She posted something on Facebook that she was having trouble finding some Krynic that she needed for a design. And I happened upon this huge stash at a garage sale about a year ago. A woman was asking for this big bag. She had a big bag of Krynic and metallics, and she wanted $40 for it. My husband said, because I kept going over and looking at it again, and my husband said, well, would you take 20 for it? And she said, yeah, okay. So I have this enormous bag. So I had 2 of what Leah needed, and they're kind of obscure things like 014, which is Star Blue. And so she and I are actually going to meet up and in I think a week from now, and kind of drive halfway, and that'll be fun. But she just showed up in my speed dating, so we got a chance to do a little pre-chatting, a little advanced stuff. There were a lot of, Flosstubers out there, big names, little names. It was fun to get a new listing of different people that you might not have seen before. So Callie from Floss Boss and Cousins, I was matched up with her one time, and Dottie from Stitching Scotty, who I already follow on Instagram, but I haven't checked out her Flosstube until I got done with Jingle Ball and I started watching her Flosstubes. So it was fun to see some different people. I think Pam and Steph were rumored to be there. I think a lot of the designers that were there were popping into some of the stitching rooms. I think they even had pop-up stitching tables that they were kind of sitting in as well, so you could kind of have more of a casual chat. They had a meet and greet with the designers, and there's I think 12 different designers, and I sat in to a number of those. Jeanette Douglas, and who has commented on the choice that I made on this POMPEJI thing, and she was very supportive. She's been in the Chatelaine Facebook group, and she was cheering me on for, go, just take that bold color and do it. So thank you, Jeanette. And let's see, Jodi Rice from Satsuma Street was on there, and there were, in the chat she was talking about certain things, and I posted a couple things like do I have it up here? Oh, I don't know if I put it here. I posted in there that I had done one of her Christmas cats as a Christmas stocking a while back. I blinged it up a little bit with some beads and stuff. And there was another one that I had done where I added some stuff on there, so she was enjoying that. And before she left, she said, well, when I am done with Jingle Ball, I'm going to go doing my own stitching, and she was going to work on Charley Harper with a Christmas caper. And so, more on that in a bit. I promised you some raccoons. We'll show you that in a second. But a good tie-in. She was actually going to be working on that as well. And then I was also in a Christmas stocking stitching table with Sarah of Sarah's Stitching Spot, and I'm already a subscriber to her, and she had a Christmas stocking she was trying to finish up for her grandchild, and so she was in there trying to focus on it. So it was very pleasant to meet her as well. So hi, Sarah. And so it was a lot of fun to get to see people that you just kind of run into, and they're just, stitching like you are and doing that kind of stuff. So that was a lot of fun. If you haven't tried Jingle Ball before, I would recommend it. They had entertainment that you could watch, and I had to pace myself. Being an introvert, I've talked about this before, I kind of was burnt out. I was very, very tired after, a few sessions of speed dating or sitting in the rooms and stuff. So I wasn't 24/7 all weekend long, and you don't have to be, but, pace yourself. And next year I'll build up my tolerance a little more and be able to do a little bit more, so I'd recommend it. So, we talked about Christmas caper. And I was mostly done with this the last time I showed up. It was probably a year ago. I think this was my Christmas episode last year. And this is the finish. I say it's finished, but I forgot to put a hanger on it. And it's almost Christmas and I haven't gotten around to putting a hanger on it. But here they are. Let me move a little bit closer so I can get all these. So I had seen this. This is Charley Harper. I had seen a needlepoint guide for this to do a lot of specialty stitches, and I thought it was just the cutest thing ever. And so I thought, well, let me see if I can figure out how to do that. And I managed to figure out a big chunk of it, but there were some things that I needed some help with. So I did what I think are Scotch stitches here in the chimney, and some satin stitches for the brick. This is, I'll put all the information down below, what kind of floss I used, and the whisper on their faces. I went diagonally on this side of the face and diagonally on the other half of the face, and I didn't have the courage to brush them. I've done a couple things with whisper, and I know they say you're supposed to take a toothbrush or something and fluff them up, and it terrifies me. I'm just afraid it's going to be this big cloud with no defining borders, so I never do it. But they're, you can see they're a little bit fluffy, and their eyes and the little stars and the moon are glow in the dark. The moon, I think I might have liked to have done a little more definition. That's really how the picture looks, the original artwork from Charley Harper. And then I found a cute little jaunty Santa's little helper in quotes, font that I put up on the top here. And for the popcorn here and the berries garland, I took 1 centimeter felt balls that I got on Etsy and sliced them in half. And then I did massive French knots with white pearl cotton, I think 5, and just did some just wild things, and then just tons and tons and tons of French knots, and then little gold glass beads for the kernels inside there. This is a turkey cut stitch, and this is one where I started to have issues, where I needed some help. And it's not as good as I would like it to be. I've seen some turkey cut that look really plush, and I was having a hard time keeping the stuff from pulling through. I don't think I was doing it right. I don't know. And it doesn't look like it's trimmed up everywhere that it should be. I've got some loose hairs, but I'm afraid to cut anymore and give them too much of a haircut. But I was worried about it pulling out, and Fray check was one suggestion I got from MJ McCarney, and I ended up, because I was terrified of doing an interfacing, because I wasn't sure if it was going to squish. I had to iron things down. I didn't want to squish all of the popcorn and stuff. But I did end up using that. And it was okay. It was fine. I was delicate when using that. I didn't go all the way up to the top. And it's just covering basically the stitching. Yeah, I guess it went all the way to the bottom. I wasn't sure if I covered just the tail or not. But so that was suggestion number 1. And then I was concerned about the whiskers. I wasn't sure exactly what to do with those. And let me grab my notes so I give everybody credit for what they talked about. Stephanie from On Point Stitcher suggested I use maybe fishing wire. She wasn't totally sure. But what I ended up using was 1 strand of floche, and I couched it just, I think, in one place. I don't know if you can see the little, there's a spot usually where I just tacked it down with one stitch. And floche I learned about from Stephanie Wingett 1 on Instagram, so I think that worked out pretty well. That's kind of true to what the artwork looks like. And let's see, I talked about thinking maybe I needed something on the toe, and I got a suggestion from from Beth. I don't know any more than that, who left a comment suggesting maybe putting a tail sticking out here, maybe not a fluffy tail like this one, but just kind of a tail sticking out. But once I got done, I thought, oh, you know, I think that will be fine. Toe doesn't have to go far out, and the roof of the thing, it looked okay without that. So thanks, Beth, but I think it worked out alone like that. But the other good piece of advice that Beth gave me that was invaluable, because I was really struggling with this one, was the candy cane. And so what I did is, first of all, I did it all in white B52 satin stitch diagonally around the candy cane form, and then I used two different widths, like a 1/16 and a 1/8, I think, inch thickness of just a satin ribbon, but I wasn't sure exactly how to do that. And what Beth told me was that she thought about ribbon embroidery when she saw this, and she said it uses a sharp point needle and a large eye. And she Googled it for me. I didn't have to do any Googling. And she came up with chenille needle, and that was the absolutely right tool. I cannot thank you enough, Beth, for that. And so I kind of was able to do the placement of one of the sizes of ribbons and then intersperse it with the smaller strand of ribbon. So couldn't have done it without you, because I'm very happy with how that turned out. And I was a little worried that the satin stitches of the, if you've ever worked with the satin fabric, the DMC satin, the SB5200, I think it is, it can be kind of squirrely, I guess, is the best way to say it. So, and then I also backed it with some Charley Harper fabric of the same design. I did use interfacing on this as well, because it was just a cotton and it wasn't very stiff. You can see I had a little trouble here. It's a little wrinkly where the interfacing was a little wrinkly. But it's the original artwork from Charley Harper of what that looks like. So I put that on the back and sewed it together. So thanks everybody so much for the help. I couldn't have done this without you, so I appreciate that as well. And then, speaking of raccoons, we were recently reorganizing some stuff in kind of our storage area, and I ran across an old essay that I had to write. I was in 4-H in probably 7th grade and submitted some stuff to the county fair and got some ribbons for it. And the project I had done was this raccoon, and I put a velveteen red backing on there, and it doesn't look too bad for a 7th grader. It's probably better than I would do now, because I actually had taken sewing classes somewhere around then in junior high. But I had this, I had the ribbons, and I had this story about how I'd gotten stitching, involved in stitching. I think I'd seen this and decided I wanted to do it, but I can't find it. We reorganized, and so now it is lost forever. I don't know where it is anymore. Just saw it a couple of weeks ago, gone. So if I ever find that again, I will pull out and proudly display my ribbons and tell you how I came to stitch raccoons and other things. I do have some shout outs that and some thank yous that I want to do. I want to thank Paula, who is stitching in high heels on her Flosstube number 31. She did a retreat recap video. She was at the same retreat I was at, and she talked about having a fangirl moment meeting me, and I had a fangirl moment meeting her. So you always think that, you know, there's somebody different, you know, than normal people, but they're just Flosstubers. They're just regular people that like to stitch, that turn on a camera in their living room and tell people about it. So, so that was a lot of fun. And she actually, you know, talk about fangirls. She is in the big league. She got shouted out by none other than Pam and Steph on Just Keep Stitching. So episode number 361, they called her the, Pam and Steph Clear the Decks is the title of that. They have named her the Gold Flosstuber of the Week. They do a gold and a silver. The silver is a newer Flosstuber, and a gold one is somebody who's been around for a little longer. And so congratulations, Paula. It's fantastic news. Very happy for you. Speaking of Pam and Steph, you get this regular recap on YouTube of statistics and how you've done, and the last time I got one, they show you, you know, how many subscribers you got, and they have little pictures of the people that have subscribed to you. And there was a picture of somebody I knew, Pam and Steph. Pam and Steph have subscribed to my channel, so I was very excited. So it's still not like in Paula level notoriety, but Pam and Steph at least have turned my channel on and did not turn it off. So thank you very much. I went back and realized I don't think I have thanked this person, and she quite a while ago mentioned me in her Flosstube, and I apologize for not doing that. It's Sabrina, and she's with Lady Marmalade in Stitches, and way back in April in her episode 14, she had given me a very nice recommendation for people to watch me, and I appreciate that, Sabrina, as well. So that was very nice of you to do that. And Catherine, Needleberry Stitcher, also was at the Queen City Stitch Retreat, and she, in her episode number 37, referred people to my Queen City Stitch Retreat recap that I did, and the videos of the brag table, and so my number 34 she referred people to. So thank you, Catherine. That's what I have. It is nearly Christmas. I know this is not very Christmassy episode, but I do have one stocking. It's probably the only stocking that I've done all year long. I've got some stockings behind me here, so you can see those. And but I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, and we will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.